Evening, everyone. We're going to call to order of the Board of Education, District 208.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Nardi, would you take the roll?
Yes.
Yes, here.
Here.
Yes.
Yes, here. We have recognitions this evening, correct?
Dr. Freitas, you ready?
Good evening, honorable board members. This is my favorite part of the meeting because this is where we get to brag about our students and our great staff. So I want to congratulate Mr. Dave Monty, and who's the head coach and taking us to state year after year, and the entire chess team who went to Peoria for the IHSA state tournament on February 11th. Nine chess team players competed, and the team picked up 2 team victories. First-year senior Juan Figueroa moved up 2 boards in the last 3 weeks and had 2 wins and 3 draws on board 3. Junior John Free won 4 matches on board 6, while first-year sophomore Quentin Roner had 3 wins on board 7. Senior Trevor DeButch won 3 on board 2, and first-year junior and alternate Carl DeMiglio won 2 of his 3 matches on board 8. Junior alternate Eric Albaran had 1 win and a draw in the 4 other matches on board 8. Neil Cannon had a tough weekend playing first board against every school's best player, but every one of his matches was extremely close, and there were several where he could have gotten a win or a draw. Senior Zach Hosek and Julian Duda played many tough and close matches, and Zach earned a tremendous draw to close out the team win versus rival Fenton on Friday. The team consisted of Eric Albaran, Trevor DeButch, Carl DeMiglio, Julian Duda, Juan Figueroa, John Free, Zach Hosek, Neil Cannon, and Quentin Roner. David Gugliciello was part of the team. David didn't participate at state because he was ill, but he was an essential part of the sectional team.
Dr. Freitas, you want to reread those names?
I will.
And,
I want to say 2 or 3
board members
times.
want to come up?
Please.
So we could have, and then students, when you're called up, just stay up front with Dr. Freitas till everybody's up here, and we'll take a picture.
I'm going to do a picture, okay? All right, first student I would like to recognize here, Eric Albaran. Please come up, Eric. Give it up for Eric. Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, next chess athlete I'd like to call up, Trevor DeButch. Trevor? All right, Carl DeMiglio. Carl? Give it to Carl. Congratulations. All right. Next chess athlete, Julian Duda. Julian? Juan Figueroa. Juan? Where are you, Juan? Come on up.
Congratulations.
John Free. John? Zach Hosek. Zach? Neil Cannon. Neil? Quentin Roner. Quentin? And David Gugliciello. David, come on up.
Congratulations. Come stand right here.
Just get a little shoulder to shoulder so they can take a quick picture.
Smile at all those people with the camera.
Parents, you're more than welcome to take pictures. This is your moment right now.
We'll wait. Yeah, it's fine. Everybody smile underneath your mask. You can tell in the eyes. You can still tell in the eyes.
I guess Claire's taking a nice picture.
That a girl, Claire, right in the middle.
Let's hear it one more time for the chess.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, chess
Everyone
team.
was good at chess.
Thank you, guys.
You guys can sit down.
Spread out.
Good job, guys. Good job, everybody.
Student Associations report. Would you guys want to come up, please?
Hey guys.
Mr. 40, show 'em how it's done, Mr. 40. Keep going.
Well, first we'll start off with our names. I'm Amanda.
I'm Madison.
I'm Jillian.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Ella. I'm Mary.
We've been doing a lot, so we're excited to tell you all about it. Jill, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, and so in November we did holiday cards for the troops. So before school and during lunches, we had tables set up so that students could write holiday cards that could be sent off. We ended up having over 300 personalized cards that were delivered and distributed to the USO in the greater Chicagoland location. So that was awesome.
And the big part about the cards that we really emphasize to all the students who write them is that we want them to be very personal. We don't want them to just be like, happy holidays, blah, blah, blah. We'd like them to write, I'm a senior in high school, this is what I've been doing, this is how my school year's been. I hope you're having a good year as well, just so it feels more like a connection and not as forced, which all of our students did. And it was awesome.
So during that holiday season, we had a bunch of different stuff going on, but during Thanksgiving, we always partner up with CSS in Brookfield, which is the Community Support Services, and we try and do Thanksgiving baskets, but due to COVID, we had to change them to gift cards, which is what they asked us to do. And throughout the school, we collected money before and after school, certain classes collected money, and certain staff just donated gift cards, and we ended up collecting 30 $50 gift cards to give back to them.
Next up, we did the coat and blanket drive. This year was extremely successful, which we are so grateful for. All of our donations were brought over to Salvation Army location. It wasn't like one of their stores, they did it out of a church, and we got to drop them off, which was interesting to see because they set it up where you walk in and you can pick up food, you can pick up a present, they had presents wrapped, and just a whole bunch of coats we donated to them and blankets. Some of the coats we were not able to give to them because they were looking for specifically like really thick winter coats. So other coats that were not up to like that specific standards were given to local churches and areas around here. And also, I forgot the name, but he reached out to us and he came to RB and picked up like 2 bags full of coats and gave them out to homeless teens in Chicago. Here's our totals for it. So coats, we had 259 coats, 131 hats, 118 pairs of gloves, 54 scarves, 81 blankets. We had 2 boxes full of socks, brand new socks. Additional items that were donated through Toy Box Connections were pillows, t-shirts, backpacks, sports bras, pajamas, underwear, sheets, and all of those were given to a domestic shelter. Well, a domestic abuse shelter, sorry.
Great work.
Each quarter, students write notes to staff just saying thank you and like just appreciating them as a teacher. And this quarter, we wrote over 100, and we just kind of do this during lunches and during our essay meetings.
And then I'll talk about the Spirit Day. So once a month we have a Spirit Day. And the typical ones, usually a blue and white bulldog theme, but then we also kind of shake it up and have some fun ones. Like in December we have a seasonal one, so we had the holiday sweater one. And then the recent one we had was Monogram Day, which was super successful. And this is just a fun way once a month to kind of garner up some school spirit and kind of all come together as a school. So.
And it gives something fun to look forward to. If you saw me that day, I was wearing all hot pink. Nicole was wearing all purple. Madison was in all green. A lot of people wore all black, but then there was the people like us who went a little overboard on it.
So another thing we did this year, we wanted to just give back to some of our crossing guards, and we did 2 like wool hats and some other goodies, and we did that the last day before winter break. And that's just a small thing we do, but we want to recognize everyone for their hard work. And then,
Yeah, it was a senior. Caroline Morero was here. Do you want to say hi? It was her idea to do it. So it was Caroline.
And then another thing that we do is our blood drive. We had our first blood drive in November, and we are actually having our second one tomorrow. We had a total of 76 people sign up during lunches last week, which is really awesome because each kind of blood saves a total of 3 lives. So it's a lot of lives being saved by RB students and staff as well. And then we also are hosting the blood drive in the East Gym, and we're hoping for a smooth transition tomorrow.
And then also coming up, well, last year, if you guys remember, we did 2 separate food drives, which were given to St. Leonard's in Berwyn. And this year they reached out to us again, asking for a little more help. So we're hosting a 2-week food drive in the beginning of March. It's going to start March 7th and go through the 18th. In addition to that, we're teaming up with Helping Paws and their own, how do you describe it? They're volunteering at the Brookfield Food Pantry to like reorganize and restock some stuff. So we are gonna help them with that as well.
And then for our students, we wanted to do something fun and kind of new. We tried to do it last year, but it didn't work out with COVID. We're going to host a trivia night that we're super excited about. So we're planning that in April, on April 7th. And we're reaching out to all different clubs instead of just SA. We're going to try and partner up with like Best Buddies, AST, any of those clubs so we can get all different types of participation in this trivia night.
Is it all RB trivia?
No. So our
Okay.
sponsor, Miss Ziola, is making all the questions, and she's making them super hard. So we're actually going to do teams so that there's several heads going into this trivia night because she's trying to make it difficult so that you actually have to earn the prizes, and it makes it a lot more fun. But those are just some of our additional things coming up in April and May, and then we have another event in mind that we haven't fully pulled the strings together for, so stay tuned for that. But we're super excited about what we've accomplished and are looking forward to the rest of the year.
Great. Good job,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you for all your enthusiasm and planning. That's a lot of effort.
How many of the Student Association Executive Board members are seniors?
Almost all of us.
5 out of the 6?
Yes.
So we're going to have your full engagement all the way through graduation, right?
Yes.
No senioritis. All right, brother. Good job.
Yeah, is there any other questions?
No, anyone?
No?
Thank you all for all your Do we have anyone here for visitor statements this evening?
Parents, this is a good time if you want to make your way out, or you could stay for the meeting. It's up to your...
Yeah.
Feel free to stay, but if you
Should
want
feel
to
like a
leave,
flight attendant there, Mike? This way?
exits
Yeah,
here.
right.
Arcadia, you're not going to stay? No? You're not going to stay? No, I'm okay.
Way to put her on the spot. It's just wonderful.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Have a good night.
Quentin, you and I.
I'm going to cut Quinn loose here real soon.
That's you. Why you make the big bucks, man.
So that did become no visitor statements. Do we have any discussion information items for now or later on in the agenda from anyone on the board? We don't have any discussion information
Well, you
items
gotta leave
tonight.
one of them open.
You just got to have the correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
all.
Yep. Thank you.
Sorry.
Any additional discussion items any board members want to raise? I will add for a future agenda, we do need to discuss the student advisor position. It was a pilot program last year and this year, so in a future meeting, we'll need to discuss how we want to proceed with that, if we want to update our policies or not, and if we want to incorporate it into the school election cycle again.
Okay. Mary Ann, please make note of that. Okay.
Moving ahead, I don't have any specific reports. I know we'll have some comments in relation to some of the superintendent's reports, but I'll turn it over to Dr. Skinkis.
Thank you. Some general district update. First and foremost, the district and the RBEA, and that's the Teacher and Support Staff Union, have officially begun collective negotiations. The current collective bargaining agreement is set to expire June 30th of 2020. COVID-19, first and foremost, I wanted to... 2022, I'm sorry. Thank you. As I should know that today is 2/22/2022. COVID-19. So the district sent home a notice to families on February 16th, just giving you an update on what we were planning on doing in regards to going mask recommended on the week of February 28th. We now sent an additional update this weekend on February, it was on Sunday, so the 20th, I want to say that was. After the court case ruling came out February 18th, where we updated our mitigations and our transitions from mask required to mask recommended. Originally, we had, as stated in the original communication, the plan was to go mask recommended on February 28th, but with the updated appellate court decision, we expedited that process briefly by making this a transition week. Now, in that communication, it was stated that, Masks are still recommended, however, they are not required, and that starts as early as today. Another reason, some parents have sent emails, why are we using mask recommended, not mask optional? We worked very closely with the school board, the teachers union, legal counsel, our liability insurance, and the preferred term to be used is mask recommended. So that's why we are using mask recommended. Now, I get parent emails on both sides of this discussion, and I understand everybody is very passionate. But we were trending in the right direction, as I said at the earlier February board meeting, to be eventually moving to rolling back some of our mitigations, primarily the mask mitigation. Our vaccination rates are at 77% for students, 95% for staff. We've only had 16 cases, knock on wood, in February compared to where we had 132 in January and a similar number in December. So cases are trending in the right direction. Positivity rate was trending in the right direction. And I'm sure masks helped with that direction. And so we're not saying we're getting rid of masks. We are going with a mask recommended mitigation, and it's up to the parent and the student on what they want to wear to school in regards to their mask. The main thing I want to make sure we stress is that we're still required to keep masks on buses. We're still implementing social distancing. We have testing available. We have the increased airflow in the HVAC systems. We have alternative lunch spaces still. We're still going to be doing contact tracing. However, contact tracing will no longer require exclusion. It'll just be a notification system, so families are made aware if their student was a close contact. They should keep an eye out for the students if they develop any symptoms. And then students who test positive for COVID-19 will still be required to stay home for 5 days and will need to wear a mask for an additional 5 days upon their return to school. The main thing I want to make sure we touch on to all stakeholders is to continue to treat each other with respect and empathy for each other's personal decisions around masking and the COVID-19 mitigation strategies. We understand members of our school community may have different opinions regarding the district's COVID mitigation strategies, and we ask for your continued patience, partnership, and support during this transition. In regards to superintendent advisory councils, no new updates. The 3-year textbook renewal plan was sent out for review by the curriculum council on whether or not we need to do a Zoom call. Facility advisory, no updates. Finance advisory meeting occurred on February 15 to review the 4-year financial projections, and Dr. Smetana will cover those tonight. No updates for personnel, policy, or purchase of sale or lease of land. Are there any questions in regards to the superintendent's report?
I do have a question. So about it says testing for symptomatic students. I know that
Tests are kind of a hot commodity and they're hard to come by, but with this new, people not wearing masks, do you think that will change? Like if I had no symptoms, but just for my own sense of being and peace of mind, are you able to go get tested? Because I know they were refusing people.
So we have enough rapid tests, and we also have now Shield PCR test. If we run out of rapid tests, we also have the PCR test. We have plenty of tests.
So asymptomatic students could, if they felt, if they wanted to do it to feel comfortable, they could go get tested at the nursing
in the health office, yes.
Question, has IHSA made any statements yet on this?
Not that I am aware of. I know they had a directing board meeting. I know I thought for the state tournament for boys and girls basketball, I thought was going to be mask optional at University of Illinois, but I do want to speak out of turn. I need to confirm that. I can have Dr. Freitas confirm that. No formal statement.
Okay, thank you. No, I just want to support and stress, your comment about respect and empathy for everyone involved. I think we've all received a lot of feedback, and certainly the administration and the teachers have received a lot of feedback on this, and this is not an easy path that everyone's on, but I think, it's challenged by the different voices, and I think that 208 has done a very good job in navigating this moving forward, so thank you. Comments on this from anyone?
Thank you.
Dr. Smetana.
Good evening. I'll begin with my regular monthly reports, which provide financial information for the month of January, which is 58% of the fiscal year. Beginning on Board Book page 7 is the monthly summary report. You'll see the total operating revenue for the month was $852,968, with 49% coming from federal and state reimbursements, 23% coming from evidence-based funding, which is our state funding, and 17% coming from property tax and CPPRT. The total operating expenditures for the month were just shy of $2 million. They were $1,990,383, with 77% towards salary and benefits, 9% for operations and maintenance. Primarily, our liability insurance was a large portion of that, and 6% for special education payment or special education tuition. The next page begins our monthly financial statements. You can see the fund balance summary shows that the district continues to deficit spend in its operating funds. This will continue through February, certainly, and probably into March as well, until the district receives additional property tax, which typically does come in March. The next page shows the summary of revenues for the district. And you can see the district has received 52% of our budgeted revenue for the year, which is very similar to this amount last fiscal year. We continue to chip away at the property tax prior year amount that we have budgeted for. So I'm continuing to provide the board with a running total. We're currently now chasing $240,149. And so we're at about 97.6% in terms of what we budgeted for that line item. The summary of expenditures shows that the district has spent 57% of the budgeted expenditures for the year, which is very similar to this time last year. And then, as always, I've included the statement of revenue and expenditures report for the month, which compares budget to actual for board accounts, and then also the student activity account summary report for your information as well. Before I move on to financial projections, were there any questions on this portion? Okay. Financial projections begin on Board Book page 26. Each year I provide the board with financial projections around this time, and we typically do 3 to 4 years out to provide the board with an estimate of what our financial future looks like. The first document contains a list of assumptions that I need to make in order to make the projections for the next 4 years. I will go over some of these projections or assumptions. I'm not going to read all of them to you, but all of this information was reviewed with the Finance Advisory Council, I believe last week from my memory. So looking at the assumptions, some of the larger ones that I'd like to highlight are property tax collection rates. For fiscal years 23 through 26, I have that at 99%. Last year, with the pandemic, we anticipated those being a little lower, so we were able to bump those back up to our normal collection rates. Consumer Price Index, CPI, will increase from 1.4% in levy year 2021 to 5% in levy year 2022. And then I assumed 2.5% for levy years 2023 through 25. I'm going to go on after I go over the assumptions, I'll go into detail about how our CPI in levy year 2022, when that actually impacts us in terms of revenue for the district. Evidence-based funding, you may have heard in the news, Governor Pritzker would like to increase that. That would still need to be approved at the state level, but last time this was increased, we received a little over $100,000, so that's where that $113 comes from. And then a lot of the other revenue items are returning things to a pre-pandemic level. On the expenditure side, I had to make several assumptions as this is a negotiation year, as Dr. Skinkis mentioned. So I don't have a contract or CBA to work from. Staff salaries, returning certified staff increases for the assumptions. I have a placeholder at 3.75% for fiscal years 23 through 26. The current CBA has an average salary increase over 3 years of 3.4% every year. So that's where I was bumped that up a little bit to 3.75 as a placeholder. Administrative contracts, I put 3% for next year and 2.5% as a placeholder for the future. Non-certified salaries are currently at 3% in our CBA. So for right now, I left them at 3%. Activity and athletic stipends I set to increase at 1.25% each year. Medical and dental insurance, medical at 4% and dental at 1.5%. Staffing hiring projections, I have based those off of our enrollment projections that the board received in November. So next year is our highest year of enrollment, our enrollment peaks, and then it steadily declines a little bit each year. So I have the FTE reflective of that as well. And then retirement savings vary greatly depending upon the year. Some years it's 0, and then some years if we have multiple people retiring, you can see the highest is $194,000. And then lastly, in terms of assumptions, I have a special education tuition increasing by 1.5%, and transportation increasing by 1% for next year, and then 2% for the following years. I only have 1% for next year because I think we're going to come in under budget this year, so we didn't need to increase it as much for next year. So now going back to CPI, if you look on the next page in board book, this is something new that I included this year at the advice of Finance Advisory Council to help explain CPI and when it actually impacts the district from a revenue standpoint. So we often refer to fiscal year, which is July 1st through June 30th. So for example, as you can see in blue, fiscal year 22 is July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2022. We refer to the levy year often, which is the year in which the district files a levy. So most recently, we filed our levy 2021 in December of 2021. As you can see in that little box below December 2021, it uses CPI from 2020. And then what happens in March, so for us next month, the district will receive 55% of the previous year's levy, because what happens is Cook County doesn't have time to process all of that information that it receives in December. And so they say, okay, we're just going to go off of last year's levy. And so it's really using, that March is really using levy year 2020 or CPI from 2019. And so then what happens is in the next fiscal year, which is August, you can see we get the second installment for levy year 2021. And so we're in a new fiscal year, and this amount is adjusted based upon the updated levy and how accurate the spring assessment was, and whether or not that 55% was too high of an estimate or too low of an estimate. And then we repeat the process all over again. And so I know that this is a lot of information. However, it's important to discuss because CPI has a significant impact on the revenue that the district receives, and it's always 2 or 3 years behind. So in the spring, the district collects property tax that's based on a CPI that's 3 years old, and in the fall it collects property tax based upon a CPI that's 2 years old. So what this translates to is that the district will receive the 2021 CPI, and so the big number going around is 7.1% for CPI, but in Cook County we're a tax cap district, and so we are capped at 5%. So that 5% of CPI in 2021 really is going to impact us in August 2023 and March of 2024, which is all of fiscal year 2024. So it's difficult to understand because some of our expenses on the supply side are certainly going to go up a lot sooner than that, but we're not going to receive that huge influx, or that significant influx of revenue until 2024. And then the other thing that we have, which you'll see in a minute, that complicates this process is we have our debt service payments are fluctuating. And so what that means is in some years that spring estimate is not going to be a great estimate because our debt service number is changing significantly from one year to the next. And so it's basing it off of a debt service number that's going to change as well. So, and that's why you'll see that translating into the projections in a minute.
Kristen,
These are wonderful charts. Are these going to be on our website? I think it'd be really nice to have them up there.
Thank you. They're in a board book, but I can talk to Dr. Skinkis if we want to put them on our website under the business office tab as well.
Because I think it helps explain a lot of questions that like families or people ask about the finances. I mean, you laid it out really nice and clear here.
Thank you. I had some good direction from the Finance Advisory Council.
Yeah, they're really wonderful. I think it'd be helpful for our families to see that gap. Like when you point it out, it's just amazing the amount of years in between.
Thank you. And so if you look at the next page on the financial projections, you can see, if you look just at revenue, you can see we get our biggest influx of revenue in fiscal year 25. And again, that's because we get that CPI bump partially in 2024, but then with our influx of debt service, that also really impacts us significantly in fiscal year 25. So if you look at the yellow line, that line is representing either the surplus or deficit that's projected for that fiscal year. So if you start at the first column, budget year 2022, as you all know, we approved a budget that has a surplus of $694,000. That's primarily due to the over $1 million that we received in ARP ESSER 3 funds this year. And so if you go down that column even more, you can see we always report out on two fund balances. And that is because the district has reserved $2.9 million in working cash. So we represent one with that money and one without that money, as that money has been earmarked for land acquisition or field development. So if you look at the numbers in blue, at the end of this fiscal year, if we hit our surplus of $694,000 for our budget, we would have a fund balance as a percent of expenditures at 54.67%. And what that means is if the district were to receive no additional revenue, we would be able to operate for 54.67% of a fiscal year. So roughly that translates to 6.5 months. And so that's why that fund balance is so important, especially with Cook County talking about delaying the fall property tax collection this coming fall until December. This fund balance is critical in order to be able to continue to pay our bills. So as you can see, we're projecting a deficit each year for the next 4 years. The deficit varies, again, depending on the year you look. And we're projecting a deficit, I have noted on the bottom, a bigger deficit in fiscal year 24 and 26, primarily due to the timing of debt service payments and how that impacts the levy, and when we make that debt service payment and when we're collecting the money. I have other information that I need to report out on tonight, but I'd like to pause and see if there are any questions in regards to the projections for tonight.
What was the county, what did you say the county might pay us December what?
It's projected to be possibly delayed, no firm time.
So instead of August of 23?
22. We're looking at November, December.
Which is 6 months after the beginning of the fiscal year. And do we have debt that's due December 1st, 2022?
We do have debt due in December. I don't think it's December 1st though, but it is in December.
So it's going to be a fund balance.
That's why that 6 month is.
Could take us down to about a month or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was the news reports and some discussion, maybe 6 months ago on that, and I know there are teams working very hard to not delay the collection, but it's a systems issue, and so I imagine we're not unique in this situation, right? We actually have a healthy fund balance, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of interest in the timing of this sooner rather than later. The ESSER is in the federal line of revenue, right?
Yes, this year, yes.
I'm wondering if it makes sense to either footnote that or call that out, since it is you see the decrease if you look at the percentages, obviously. But that really was the formula for a balanced budget this year, and since it does go away and I know you referenced it in your remarks, but whether it's on the assumptions or on this sheet, I think it's important to highlight it as well.
It is referenced on the assumptions, but I
It is,
can
okay.
also add a footnote
Oh, no,
here.
my apologies, I didn't see it there.
So it goes basically from 2 million this year to under 1 million a couple of years from now, and staying under 1 million.
Correct.
Very nice job so far.
So roughly, when the board is looking at fund balances, basically 286,000, is it equivalent to every 1%?
It's a little less than that, isn't it, at 215?
In terms of total revenue, yes, that includes local, state, and federal, yes.
Okay. And that's the same number kind of we can use if property tax collection comes in at 98 compared to 99.
We
the
usually
board
use
has
a little
rough-
lower, we usually use around 215, 220 tops for
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, I have two additional informational items for the board tonight. The first is the fiscal year 23 board calendar, which is on board book page 30. This is the tentative budget calendar that I typically follow, and I always provide it to the board at this time of year. There was a question submitted about the facility use cost or our rental cost. That is brought to the Facility Advisory Council either in late May or early June, and then brought to the entire board for approval in June or July. We typically look to make changes in costs every other year, and so this is the year that we would look to compare our costs to other districts and see whether or not we need to increase anything or not.
I'm assuming coming off of another year of pandemic where our revenues have been down, I mean, they've rebounded compared to the first year. I'm not sure if a lot of school districts will be altering their revenue prices or their rental prices just because a lot of places have not been renting for the last 2 years, or it's been limited renting.
I do anticipate that as well. We haven't started doing our comparables with other districts yet at this point. The changes that we have kind of a running list of things that we'd like to see improved are just some minor things to clear up some language and charges, for example, late charges, things of that nature. But that process is separate of the budget process as a whole, and that will go to the Facility Advisory Council. And then lastly, facility rental second quarter. So this report only includes the second quarter rentals that we have received money on. So second quarter is the time period of October 1st through December 30th of 2021. The district collected $15,099.93 in revenue and expended $3,296. At this time, roughly 2 years ago, 1920, the district collected $22,443, so we are tracking a little bit lower than 2 years ago. Some of that is due to still chasing some unpaid invoices, but in general, we are down a little bit when it comes to rentals. So looking from the revenue this quarter, 47% of it came from facility space charges, with the majority of rentals from the stadium, followed by the field house. Aquatics is certainly a big rental for us, but we did not receive a paid invoice during the second quarter. So this is just, again, reflecting the paid invoices from the second quarter. Year to date, the district has collected $24,183.43 and has expended $3,296. So the surplus that we eventually get from rentals is used to offset the costs related to the upkeep of facilities. At this time in the 1920 school year, so pre-pandemic, we had brought in a little over $49,000 in revenue and had $13,000 roughly in expenditures. So you can see the discrepancy there. I do think we will be able to hit what we budgeted for in terms of rental revenue because we adjusted that, but we are tracking a little lower than where we were pre-pandemic. Things haven't really bounced back yet in terms of rentals.
Chris, I have a question. So I know you've had the cost where the amount that's been charged for a rental to offset maintaining the facilities. Are we as a school district allowed to like make profit? I mean, to make more money that we could use for other programs in the school from the rental of our facilities? Or do we have to come out like that cost neutral?
Oh, we have a 4-tier system. So if we're renting to somebody out of the district, that's a 501c3, but they're not in our taxing body. We charge them slightly more than a 501c3 inside the taxing body. If we're renting to somebody that is a for-profit organization, like somebody's travel teams and,
Outside tournaments.
things like that, we have a higher tier of rental for them to, help offset the costs we save on our tier 2. So there is no statute that you have to be cost neutral in your rental stuff.
Okay, so if the school happened to make a little extra money one year, we'd be able to use it for other needs in the school then?
Yes, we've been doing that for probably the last 10 years.
Okay.
Yes, this typically runs in and out of our operations and maintenance account,
Okay.
which is why we end up putting it towards the upkeep and maintenance of the facilities or other related things. Like, for example, I could confidently say, like, all of the money that we have brought in from rentals from aquatics went to pool repairs that we had this year. Without a doubt, they helped to offset those.
Okay.
And so we certainly could use it for other things, but all of our surplus, all of our revenue and all of our expenditures go in and out of the operations and maintenance board accounts.
And I think we do make money. I mean, we make money on these rentals.
Right, I was just wondering, because in non-for-profits, they make a lot of money, but then it has to go into the programming of the non-for-profit. And I was just wondering, if we made a little extra in our rentals, are we restricted just to the building costs? Or, could it have been used for another program or something, a school program?
We're not limited by any type of statutory restriction, right? That's what I'm hearing.
It costs us so much to keep the building running that we just put it
Right.
right back in the building. Like recently, we replaced the pool pump, right? That's gonna happen every year. So as we rent the pool, a little bit of profit, put it away for a rainy day, earmark saw it coming, the motor was in-house, it's my understanding, and under 48 hours, it was replaced.
But we're also not talking about a significant piece of our budget here.
Yeah,
So this
very,
is
very
kind of
tiny.
right.
Less than, 1%?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
like under 25,000-ish per year, something like that.
That all the questions that were submitted, you covered all those?
I did.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Dr. Smetana?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Freitas.
Dr. Skinkis, Deanna, if it's okay with you, I'd like my Director of Special Education to present first. So, Mr. Baldus, you're up.
Happy Tuesday today. Into my house this morning. They're first graders, so it was celebrated. Sure it's up there. Good evening. Welcome. Glad to give me the opportunity to kind of share what my department's doing currently this year and kind of seeing some of their accolades and things that they're doing within the special education department. The first slide that I have is just a breakdown of our population within special ed for students that we have in our building. This also does include the kids that we have that are outplaced as well. It is a breakdown of those kids and just the percentage. The totals that we have, you'll see just the overall total on the next page, but it's 227 total kids within special education at RB and outside of RB. This does, a little breakdown of specific learning disability. There's 82 kids. Other health impairment, 48 students identified as autism, 38 emotional disability, 34 intellectual disability, 15 speech and language disability, 5 disabilities, 3, and a vision impairment, 1, and hearing impairment, 1 as well. In that breakdown, there's 21 students that we currently have outplaced. Within our multiple different areas, we have 2 students that are residentially placed, one in Massachusetts and one in Kansas. We do have other 24 students that, sorry about that, 24 students that are in our transition program currently housed within RB. And then that leaves us with 182 students that are within our building that are in our mainstream population, maybe with co-taught classes, study skills, those such types of programming. Within those populations, this does not include students that receive 504s. The 504 students are handled by the Student Services Department and the counselors here at RB. So those numbers do not reflect students that have 504s in our building. A couple things that, as we look at the numbers of, the decrease of the outplaced students, is something that I like to see. One of my priorities is to try to get our kids in our building as much as possible. It's something to be said to be in your home school, or in the community where you live. It's a very big priority for me, is if we can meet their needs, obviously, right? But we did have some kids that did graduate, age out into adult services, and then some that did return primarily to our life skills program that we started back this school year, which I'll report on a little bit later. It is note too that we have initially 8 students that are in initial case study evaluations for special education services. If those students are found eligible, that would increase our number up to 235, which would be make that total student population up to 14.4 in our building and outside our building.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, you have 8 additional students that would, for 21-22?
They're currently right now going through an initial case study evaluation for special education. Our lady service teams is doing those testing right now.
So the 227 number is a snapshot in time today?
Correct, sitting right here right now. Gotcha. And to be honest, those numbers do change weekly. We do have kids that work their way out of special education, which is the ultimate goal, right? To give them the tools and the ability to work their way out of special education into full mainstream classes. It's kind of like we're trying to work ourselves out of a job in a sense, right? To meet their needs, and that's the ultimate goal. But those numbers do change frequently as we identify through Child Find kids that we need to give more supports and do those initial case study evaluations. And we do have kids that, to be honest, are moving into RB because of our program, and that speaks to the high quality staff that I have in our department. Next page, onto some numbers, some revenue numbers. Much different from the previous years, pretty consistent. One area that transportation costs were a little different last year with COVID, but anticipate that transportation will continue to stay a little bit lower than we've had in the past. Which leaves us with the $1,475,274 of revenue. And expenditures. I think the little increase in our overall numbers for expenditures from previous year, I think it's gone up. Obviously, last year we were much lower due to COVID, with not having as many staff that we had in the building. Also, we didn't have to provide as much transportation costs as we had in the past because we didn't have all of our students coming in every day from different variety of locations, and even some of our outplacement kids still were receiving supports through some days at school and some days at home, and through some of the remote as well, due to some medical conditions as well as just different reasons. So the transportation costs did drop quite a bit last year, and it's right back this year. I think it's interesting to look at if you look the difference from 2019 and 2020 to 2020-21, that you had that drop, that decrease, that 20%. So I really looked at kind of skipped that year to see where we would go from the 2019 to 2020 up to this school year, and that drop would still have been an estimated drop of 2.99% of our decrease in our net cost from the previous non-half COVID year, where we did budget out those items.
So you're using the 6136075 and the 5964286.
Yes.
Under the first blue row of total expenditures.
Yep. That's correct.
And so approximately on an annual basis, we spend somewhere between 4.5, looks mostly between 4 and 4.5 million. This would be coming out of the ed fund for special education, outside of our revenue sources.
Correct.
Okay.
So is that almost 25% of our budget? Or it's about 20% of our overall budget then, right?
Yeah, overall budget is what, 28 million?
Of our current budget, okay. Yeah,
It's pretty consistent, yes.
okay.
Mhm. All right. Page 6. Just wanted to cover some things that we're doing currently during this school year. I know that this one of the things we talked about prior is the number of Fs and kids that were not passing some of their core academic classes. Students within special ed at the end of the first semester looked at those numbers, and 93% of all students that were receiving special ed services passed all their academic core classes. I think that it's a great number, but we want to kind of look at what about the 7% that did not. That is where case managers, our psychologists really would look at data, look at where they're failing. You go back to their IEPs, do some team meetings that we currently hold weekly and biweekly to do some problem solving, to look at where those key areas that are those things that are getting in the way, and try to see what we can implement and try with these kids to work on those, get those grades up, right? Many of it is attendance. What things can we do outside of that in our school day as well? We do take advantage of LADSI's RAT Pro services, some in-home services that these basically kind of like in-home social workers will go in and help kids and families structure things that they do at home, some systems that would help the students get to school, and just kind of be that advocate in the home that we're not allowed to do, and be in the home and develop that relationship with us of showing them the importance of their children getting to school. That's just one example of something that we would try to implement if that was attendance that was really causing those grades to fall. Case managers are doing a great job working with kids, implementing those strategies. I think we've got a great veteran group with some really good hired people in the last 3 or 4 years that are completely dedicated to the success of these kids, and are top-notch advocators. They hold meetings, meet with parents, have tough conversations, and see what else they can do to get those grades up and hopefully earn those credits towards graduation, but also implement some strategies within their lives that they can carry over, not just through high school, but after that. Last year, also, one of the things that we talked about was, looking at the effectiveness of our co-teaching model here at RB. We did bring in a PD opportunity was last year, then she came back beginning of this school year to talk and give out strategies, and really did a great job of just how to develop the relationships with co-teachers in those classes. I've also gone in and did part of my focus of a lot of the staff evaluations that I did this year was to try to see these teachers in my department that are doing the co-teaching and see what they're doing in their classrooms, and do some of those recommendations and meet with them and just ask their feedback. What do they think is working for them, and also what that they feel that they also need from us to make that even a better situation. I look forward to that continuing next year. We're going to do a survey at the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, to just kind of close out the year. What can we do? Let's meet again before we leave for the summer break, so that we can have some things ready to go when we come back next school year. The PLC time, I think one of the things that we talked about was using our para educators, since we have more this school year than the past, but what else can they do to help support the school? Our psychologist team had done a great job with doing trainings during our PLC time for paras. They've got them how to collect data, just different topics that the paras were asked me through a survey of what they feel like they needed to do from what they needed to get from us in their training of their jobs to be more effective. And the school psychologist did a great job of picking that up and doing some of the trainings with those paras. They'll be starting, actually, I think today was the first day of them bringing back the check-in and check-out process that they do with kids after school. Since our paras are here through with us till 3:30 and our school day ends at 3:05, it's a great use of that 25 minutes for them to be connected with a student. And not all those kids are actually in special ed as well, so it's nice for them to kind of find kids that we've identified through small teams or within like student services, through counselors, that this individual needs more support. Then we've got LADSI LRB Academy. It is the former St. Louis school in LaGrange, and it's the LRB Academy. I did put a link in the presentation that they have that you can go and watch and just see what the school looks like and some of the programs they have set in place. But it's year 2 for that program, and we currently have 7 students in RB that are enrolled there. And they, like I said earlier, it's to me, it's the nearest location that we have students that are outplaced. They can get there within 10 minutes of living in our district, as opposed to some of our outplaced schools. They're riding a bus 1 hour one way, or maybe a cab. It keeps them connected to us, and that idea of hopefully coming to RB at some point when they make the progress they need to do to move on and move out, or that they can come back if they've been placed there after being here. To do that connection. I think, again, I can't express more that connection to their home school is vital and very important to their motivation for something to look forward to. But it's been a great partnership with LT and LADSI for these kids that are in this program at LRB.
I'm sorry, that's the second year that it's been?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I think the other advantage, obviously, is the cost effectiveness of that program. Sure. They do a lot of great things, but it's more cost effective for the districts, both districts, to have that program run through LADSI as well. Mm-hmm. Focus on our study skills program. We were identifying that we were going to have some kids that have not been in a classroom for almost 2 years, and we're going to have some freshmen that have not been in a traditional classroom since maybe the end of the 7th grade. So there's going to need a lot of the EF supports, executive functioning supports, how to function as an effective student at RB. Our study skills program did take that as a priority to implement some lessons within study skills, the social thinking classroom, as well as pride, to have these kids understand what it means to be a high school student here at RB, and they'll continue to do that as well. The transition program, like I mentioned earlier, there's 24 students in the transition program. Those are students that have completed 12th grade, but they're not ready to go to college, or for many different reasons why. But transition has been deemed appropriate by the IEP team that they can be there till in July. Governor Pritzker passed House Bill 40, which allows students that are traditionally in the past, when they would turn the day before their 22nd birthday, would have to leave, and it didn't matter when that fell, which was very impersonal, right? But you have to leave us right now. But the House bill has been an advantage that those kids, if their birthday falls within the school calendar year, they get to finish that school year out. We had some families that did choose to do that. We had some families that did not. We had one young lady that was at a residential facility, and she had already planned her post at her birthday. She had all this thing planned about going, and that came, and to tell her, well, you could stay longer, and she's like, no, I'm an adult, I'm leaving, I'm going to go do the adult services, was much more appropriate for her. And so her mother decided to still leave at that day before her 22nd birthday. But that was something that I did communicate with all those families that were eligible or had that option to do this school year, and that will continue as well. We had 13 of those 24 students that are competitively employed right now, which is great. Melissa Hammer and Ronnie Carey do a great job of community outreach, of finding job locations for our kids. And then out of those 24, we have 10 students that are in a job or getting work training with job coaches through paras or whatever it might be in the community. So again, another step towards independence and adult services after they end that 22nd year school year. Life Skills Program, this is our first year of our multi-needs Life Skills Program. And it was a great opportunity to have those students back in our building or start in our building that had been outplaced. And that was one of the reasons why some of those outplacement numbers dropped. Or we got to keep those kids in-house instead of finding an alternate location outside of school. It is still a program that by Sean Kane and a lot of the lady service people have been working really hard with Nikki Anderson as well to develop strategies of location in the building, implement a rigorous curriculum for these kids to grow. We are looking at more curriculum to continue for next year to do some benchmarking, see where they're at, then implement some strategies through the curriculum, and then go again and look at them at the end to see how much they've grown, to see what they've been able to do. And then those kids typically will then, this will be also a second year of RB running our own extended school year program, with many of those kids continue, because you do all that work with a lot of those kids and we don't want to see that learning loss, that if they're not with us, they lose it. And then we have to go back and reteach it when they come back after the summer's over. So we want to make sure that those critical life skills and self-sufficiency skills are essential to that progress and their independence. So preparing for next school year as well, I've kind of hinted on some of those things, but our sectioning and planning really is driven by our IEPs and our needs of our kids and what we need to put in the programming and how we support that programming. Next year, traditionally our PRIDE program, which has students that are primary ED that just been struggling with just managing their emotions. Sometimes a lot of kids are school avoidance. A lot of different disability issues with them, not to get into specifics, but we're going to be going to 2 staff members in that room next year, splitting those two periods each, is ideally to have 2 teachers team that up. As opposed to one person. It's going to be part of them to be master communicators, but it's going to be a situation where they'll have more access to kids during the school day to split those 2 up. Again, the Life Skills Program, again, year 2 for them next year in 22-23. And again, like I mentioned, implementing more of a curriculum and systems for those students within our school. Curriculum staff development, again, just developing better means to meet the needs, whatever it might be from educational, vocational, all the way up to social emotional needs, and continue those co-teaching supports and best practices. And again, as we look at the transition program, also continuing to build and find new job opportunities, maybe get back some of the ones that we didn't have access to because of COVID, because of not allowing students that weren't vaccinated, weren't be able to come to those work sites. Some of those we might get back here in the near future. And then the LADSI personnel services, I think we added, well actually thank you, we added a nurse to the special education program, which was very helpful with the different types of students that we had in their medical needs. It actually worked out where one of our students, we needed one of them in an emergency situation this year, and that staff member, that nurse had happened to be right there to support the student, and it turned out fantastic. And it was just helpful to have that staff person there for different of our medically fragile kids that we have in-house. And related with our new life skills program, it's also going to require us to have more related services as well as speech, OT, PT embedded into that program as well. And I think we do have 3 new life skills students coming in as for freshmen next year that will be added to that program, which brings another level of need and focus. One of the things I want to start for next school year is as special ed law changes, IEPs needed to be up to date and be brought to not a priority, but just back up to where it needs to be legally. So I'm going to start to create probably monthly during PLC time training and up-to-date on the special ed law with the case managers, looking at our best practices within IEPs to make them more efficient and to write goals that are going to measure the growth of those kids that have those IEPs, and then also look at the transition. And that's ideally in high school, an IEP focuses post-high school outcomes, and to get them connected to those post-high school outcomes through that IEP as well. And then to see the executive functioning team to continue to embed those EF skills within the building. The majority of the executive functioning team members are people that are in my department specifically. I think there's got to be 8 of the 10 are within special ed, and they pride themselves on the strong executive functioning habits that they implement in their daily classrooms, but then try to be a resource for the rest of the faculty that will then trickle down to the students in their classrooms that pick up these skills. I did have one question about assistive technology that I want to address. Special ed, we do have with technology embedded in special ed. It might be directly within their IEP, if we're doing a tech eval or just communication device, augmented communication devices, and then through the Chromebooks that the kids do use, we look at apps and technology and software that they can use within those programs to access that Chromebook that all our students do, just the same, just maybe in different ways. Sorry, that was a lot. Any questions?
Important programs. Questions? Mr. Welch?
It was a very nice report. Really, you did a lot of work. It's very nice.
I know when we ask questions, we look at the clock and all of a sudden it's a half hour later. So I want to ask a couple questions and kind of only ask for like a high level 15-second answer.
Sure.
And one of them you answered, the electronics, because I was wanting to know if we were giving the students in your department all the electronics they needed, and it sounds like they are. Could you just spend 15 seconds and refresh my memory on what the 504 is again?
504 is there's certain maybe possible medical conditions that a student would not qualify for special education services, but they do need some accommodations or modifications to access the curriculum.
Okay, very good. How is it trying to hire teachers every year? Special ed teachers are kind of few and far between, is from what I understand. How have you been doing?
A lot of due diligence, communication, finding people that I know people are looking for jobs. Just try to get. I think RB is a destination school still. I think that people want to work at RB. That's why I came here longer than I think. But it's people are going to interview here if the jobs open up, and I think we've got a good reputation.
Beautiful. That was just what I wanted.
And 15 seconds, too.
Yes, short and sweet.
Try to say them verbose.
I have one question.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it was addressed, but we had a number of 31 outplaced last year and the year before, and now we're down to 18 or 20, whatever
21,
it said.
Yeah.
What was it the COVID?
No.
Did that have anything to do with outplacement?
There was some timing. We did bring some kids to RB, like the kids that are in our life skills program. We did have some kids that did graduate and age out.
Okay.
And those are those two factors.
Okay.
Really what
All
it
right.
was too as well.
Thank you.
Laura, anything, or are you just complimenting?
No, I mean, we've had special ed before, and you really did a thorough package. It was very nice. Thank you.
I invite you to come look at the programs. They're pretty neat. So,
Thank you, Kevin.
thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After we go back to your report, please.
All right, good evening, board members. Here we go. Quick update on teaching and learning. Teachers and interventionists have identified several students needing English support and several students needing math support after reviewing STAR data, teacher referrals, and classroom performance data to date. Students are receiving one-on-one tutoring, receiving adaptive instruction, reteaching in small groups, or given the autonomy if grades in school improve to kind of continue with their general education. School culture and operations, the 5 Essential Survey is open. To date, we have 261 parents that have filled it out. That's about 19% of our parent population. The minimum threshold is 20%, so we're maybe a handful of parents away from meeting the minimum state threshold so we can get a report back. So for those parents out there, I think this is the third reminder, please complete the 5 Essential Survey. Update on mental health, and this is every Monday we receive a report, Dr. Skink and I, from my assistant principal, Beth Augustine of Student Services. And today there's a total of 145 students that have taken minimum of 1 mental health day. 122 students have taken 1 day, 17 students have taken 2 days, 3 students have taken 3 days, 2 students have taken 4 days, and 1 student has taken 5 days. Our counselors, our school psychologists, and our social workers have engaged all the students that have taken mental health days as required after the 2nd day of a mental health day. Satchel Poll Screener update. So what is the Satchel Poll Screener? I know that was a question. So it's a digital social emotional survey, roughly about 20 questions, and it asks questions regarding the following topics: social awareness, responsible decision making, self-awareness, self-management, and relationship skills. In the fall, 64% of our student body completed the survey. That was about 1,058 students. In the spring, we had an increase of 11%, and we had 1,258 students complete the survey. For the spring screener, the one we just took, students self-identified at a Tier 2. There were 460 students that self-identified in Tier 2 and 96 that identified in Tier 3. Once Tier 2 rating was combined with an early warning system indicator, the number of students in Tier 2 fell from 460 to 77. The EWS indicators, the early warning systems, are attendance, missing more than 10% of the school days, having one or more course failure by the end of the first semester, or having 2 or more behavior referrals as indicated on Skyward. Only 77 self-identified as needing Tier 2 support on Satchel that have 1 or more EWS indicator. Counselors have checked in or are checking in with those students. They're being placed in small groups, a social skills group, executive functioning group, grief group, relationship group, and etc. For Tier 3, again, we combine the self-rating with an early warning system, and that number fell down from 96 to 34, because the key to data, we triangulate, right? We look at the Satchel data, we look at their attendance and the behavior to really see where things line up so we can support those students.
I remember, board members, the tiers he's referring to are the tiers you got in the presentation in January from MTSS.
Gotcha. And just so if I could explain, so Tier 1, right, general education system, the entire school. Tier 2, we focus on groups. And Tier 3, those are the students that get the one-on-one support, such as working with our 2 advocates, our ALAP, program people. Big shout out to Sam and Alicia, who've been doing an outstanding job with that.
So Dr. Freitas, in that Satchel screener,
Correct.
I know this came up with, I think in our discussion with Ms. Augustine. We did, some students that did help us identify a few students that were not on our radar, but for a majority of these students, we had them on our radar,
Correct. Yep. And then I did want to add, not part of this, but in looking at the questions that were submitted to me by Board of Education members, really going on freshmen on track. Currently, we have 7 students that are off track, and we have 6 students that are at risk. I am personally meeting, advocating for all those students, that are at risk, to make sure that they stay on track. And not only me, this is a team effort. We have our counselor, our small teams, which is a group of counselors, administrators, that meet to support the student. We engage the parents. We engage every personnel we have in the student services team. So we are holistically support the students. So we're in good shape. Right now we're still at 98% freshmen on track. If we get all the freshmen through, and I've taken upon myself, inspired by my great team that I have, to really mentor these students so I can keep that percentage up, because we know, right, freshmen on track translates to graduation rate. That's what it really does.
Dr. Freitas,
Yes.
on the individuals who identified and, tier 2, tier 3, there's a significant drop down
Correct.
after you use the other indicators. What happens to those other students, though, who self-identified, right? You've got a really significant, are there any interventions applied for those students, or where do they fall?
Well, those
in the
students go into the
MTSS?
general curriculum, and I could just something about them. When we took it, right, sometimes kids were doing an exam, or they were nervous, they were anxious, or they were going through something, right? So what we do is we look at their self-rating, we look at the early warning system, and then we compare, we break it down, and then we see what students need support. So we just don't let them be, but at the same time, right, those students, they're doing well academically, social emotionally, behavior.
And I understand that. I just think it's,
Yes.
to go from 460 down to 77, you've got, 400 students who identified some level of concern. I just hope that they get the attention that they're looking for.
We're always constantly reaching out and working with the students as much as possible.
Thank you.
And I know our superintendent spoke earlier on the mitigation strategies, so I'll go to my next point. Currently, our average daily attendance, we're approximately at 93.5, give or take. Under athletics and activities, tomorrow, Wednesday, February 23rd, starting at 6 p.m., we will stream a virtual tour of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, located in Washington, D.C., and hold a discussion. The link will be reshared with our students, and it will be made available on our website. The event starts at 6 p.m. Everyone is invited. So it's an opportunity for everyone to see, the great museum. I personally haven't visited, have an opportunity. So
It's
I'm excited.
amazing.
So I'm
You
excited
need to
for this virtual tour.
Who's running that? That was something that you had brought up before, was it not? Who is
The
running
lead
that?
organizer is one of my assistant principals, Dave Mannon, who set up the event.
Okay. And how is that being publicized outside of here?
So
It's
we
on
have
social media and stuff?
student announcements, emails, social media, right? We have posters all throughout the school, the typical communication means.
Okay. Thank you.
March 1st is Women's History Month, so go women starting March 1st, and of course every day. The spring musical is coming, Chicago, March 3rd through the 5th at 7:30 p.m. And March 6th at 2 p.m. Tickets are $15 for adults and $10 for students and seniors. And if you have the activity pass, students are free. Boys basketball regional semifinal is tomorrow, February 23rd, against Proviso West here at home at 6 p.m. We are the regional host. We're telling all our fans to wear white. Board members, if you attend, please wear white. Then the regional final is this Friday, 7 p.m. We also host, so our plan is to be here Friday for the regional final and bring some hardware and keep it here. Girls wrestling state, this is the first time, I'm really excited for the first time in girls history that there's an official state tournament. As a former referee of girls wrestling, I am thrilled, and big shout out to Eleanor for making it. The girls' state is this Friday at 9 a.m. at the Grosinger Arena in Bloomington. It is the same day as the dual team state down in Bloomington as well. Boys swimming and diving begins this Friday, and it goes Friday and Saturday. On Friday, diving begins at 9 a.m. and swimming at 3:30. Saturday is the finals that begins at 11 a.m. Good luck to Drew Rosa, qualified for the 200-meter medley, and to Harrison, who is ranked number one, has been ranked number one almost the entire year for diving. So good luck to both of our athletes there. And then as far as IHSA events, to my knowledge, I know they're meeting now, but they're still requiring masks at events. But of course, if you're drinking or eating, just like in any place, right, you could take off your mask, eat, and drink. But as far as state tournament stuff, they are requiring masks. Guys, just bring it just in case. You never know. And especially if you're someone's home, if you're a guest, I bring it. If they tell me to take it off, I take it off. If I keep it on, I keep it on. And that concludes my principal's report.
Thank you, Dr. Freitas.
Ms.
Okay.
Harrison.
I do have a couple things to talk about this evening. So today being the first day of the mask recommended, I noticed in my classes, just from my own personal experience, probably 10 to 15% of people choosing to go without masks. And I think I feel very strongly about this issue. That's not important, but I think that this mask recommended rather than mask optional means a lot to those people who might not feel as comfortable going without their masks. For me, I will be wearing my mask, and I do, with the mask recommended, I think that's a huge
I'd like a huge kudos to RB for saying that. It means a lot that it's not just totally gone. Also, we are in the second semester of senior year. I know a lot of people were looking forward to prom, graduation, all these things. And with that, a lot of people have committed to college, trade school, and military. And I would just like to give a huge shout out to all the college and career counselors who have made that possible over the past 4 years, because now it's all the fruits of their effort are coming to fruition. Spring sports start on Monday. And for a lot of people, including myself, this is since sophomore year. If you're seniors right now, since sophomore year, this is the first time we've really been able to play, because with last year them being split into different risk levels, a lot of people either chose to sit out or had another activity going on at the same time and couldn't do it. So this is the first time some people will be putting on an RB uniform for a couple years, so that's exciting. I would like to give a good luck and a break a leg wish to all the cast, crew, and musicians working on Chicago. They've put in a whole bunch of hard work, and they are going to have some great shows next weekend. So I would recommend everyone go see it. And today, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the Seal of Biliteracy program we have at RB. So that's where on your transcript you can receive, after taking a specific exam or earning a 4 or a 5 on the AP language exam, you can receive a seal. It's a literal seal that says you are biliterate. So usually for most people that's English, Spanish, or English and French, just because of that. For me, I was lucky enough, I earned my seal last week, and I would like to say thank you to all the educators. I have only learned Spanish through school, and 7 years of amazing educators, and especially to Mr. Chinoco for bringing this program to RB, and for all his effort. That's been really evident. Yeah, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. The board took action on that, I think when Dr. Freitas first started a couple years ago. So it's good to see the fruits of the labor there. Thank you. Questions, comments for anyone looking to the left, to the right? Moving on to old business. Life safety items, I don't believe we have any this evening. And then we have Dr. Skinkis from our last discussion, building on the district goal metric discussion here.
Yeah, so the Board of Education, last time we met, when we approved the goals and we talked about the administration kind of taking first crack. So this is obviously just a draft. This is not anything concrete at this time. Dr. Smetana and myself worked on like this general format. We looked at some other districts and how they lay out their district goals. I also went back and reviewed Lori Grant's presentation to us, and she used after the general goals established, the objective, the SMART goal, action steps, and future possible considerations. And so I think, we chose kind of like two of the easier ones, goal 5 and goal 2, one with communication and one with the footprint, expanding the footprint. But I would just say this to the board, and based on some of the questions I received, I think we need to do a better job just getting all of us on the same page. So the 5 board goals, or the general district goals that were established, are more or less guiding goals, or pillars to guide us or help us build a better district and a better high school. Each year we'll identify a specific objective and then create a SMART goal for that district goal. And this is how I'm understanding it. So this is how I was why I was laying it out the way I was. And there may be a year where we don't add something new to work on in a fiscal year or a particular school year, because it's maybe a 2-year project of the previous year's objective. But the idea is to identify something each year from each of these. I know there was some discussion about administrative contracts and tying them to the district goals. I don't know with the district goals the board has created, I don't know if that will necessarily be an option. We can review that on a regular basis. I mean, the goals that are stated in administrative contracts are pretty cut and dry with school operation, graduation rate, freshmen on track, things like that, which are specifically laid out in the school report card. And the high school itself is measured upon for the taxpayers in the district and people looking to move into the district. So I want to make sure we're not trying to put too many of these things together. The idea that I took from the board generating these district goals was to help get some priorities established under these 5 buckets. And then things we want to work on as a board is when we generating our levy or budget, or when the administration is is looking at staffing or looking at operations and things, it helps us, hey, do these fit under the 5 guiding principles or the 5 guiding goals? And if they do, then we would work towards those. Or if we recognize this is something we should put down as a future or a possible consideration, that's why that last box is laid out on this kind of roadmap, so that we have things that we can work on in the future, right? So if you look at like the goal number 2, the communications, the general goal from the board was research opportunities and methods to increase two-way engagement. So the objective would be increase the number of opportunities and variety of methods to engage in two-way communication, staff, parents, students, and the broader community. The SMART goal would be, an example of this. This does not have to be our SMART goal, but an example would be hire and implement a communications consultant or employee in the 22-23 school year to increase two-way engagement with all stakeholders of the RBHS community. The action steps related to that SMART goal would be such things as distribute a stakeholder survey on what improvements in communications are needed. Then from that survey, create a job description, post for the position, interview and select a candidate. Right? So, our SMART goal, it would be aligned with, when we have a goal of a time when we want to achieve this is in the 22-23 school year, specifically what steps need to be taken, how we're going to measure if those steps were taken by having a consultant in place. And it just gives you kind of an idea of how we laid these out. We did a similar thing with goal number 5, Kristen and I, with the advocate to increase district physical footprint. And then we expand. My suggestion on this was, well, we can easily do that by expanding the Superintendents Advisory Council to include stakeholder representatives and leadership from the municipalities to identify strategies and opportunities to increase the district's physical footprint. So we all know that our main priority would be trying to work out something with the zoo. If we cannot do that, I think it's important that we meet with the other municipalities, their mayors, we involve our boosters, maybe our PTA reps, and start identifying are there other things that we should be considering doing if we continue to have no progress with the zoo. So that's why I talked about possibly expanding that advisory council. And then you can see the SMART goal, establish a committee with multiple stakeholders and conduct at least one meeting in the 22-23 school year. And then, the action steps, sending out the invitations, identifying stakeholder groups, establish the committee, conduct at least one meeting. So just was our first draft of kind of how we want to, this is a working document for the board to give back some feedback. They could always change the objective or the SMART goal or what we should be focusing on. But I would say this, remember we talked, and that we want to make sure that if we're only identifying one thing for each of these that we want to try to address in a school year. We want to make sure we're not doing 5 things under each goal so that we have 25 goals or 25 things we're expecting the board and the administration to work on top of the daily operations. So this was our first crack at it, and we took 2 of the easier goals to kind of lay this out. So I think some things for the board to discuss tonight. 1, do we understand the format? Are we okay with kind of how the format's laid out on this roadmap? And then 2, if you want to focus on one of these 2 goals, some thoughts, feedback, or input on what we laid out in the first draft.
So when I look at the chart, it seems to me, from my experience, the 2 columns, the objective and the SMART goal column, the SMART goal, if I just look at number 2, because that's pretty easy to look at.
You mean the row? I'm just
yeah,
making sure I'm
the
following.
column goal number 2.
Okay.
But if you look under the cell, SMART goal, and the cell under goal, hire and implement a communication consultant, that's a deliverable. So that's not, my understanding, that's a deliverable that would have been something that would have met the SMART goal. So I don't know that you need that row. So what you've got in the cell for objective, to me, that kind of breaks out what you want to accomplish for that goal. You wanted to increase the two-way engagement, and the deliverable would have been what you put in that SMART goal cell. That's how I would have done that in my work. That would have been one of the deliverables. and every goal can have several deliverables. I understand what you're saying about, we want to maybe prioritize one thing, but I don't think we should limit ourselves to only choosing one thing. I think we should say that there are 4 or 5 deliverables that could plausibly stand in as proxies that this was met, and then the staff would say, okay, well, can we, we're going to prioritize one of those or whatever. But I certainly think in that cell, what you have under the column SMART goal, goal number 2, and in the cell SMART goal, that is a clear deliverable to meet that goal.
Other comments, thoughts?
I agree. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I think that the SMART goal, now that hearing Laura talk about it, it would have been implement 3 new methods of two-way communication by the beginning of the new school year to ensure constituents receive the information. And how are we going to accomplish that? We're going to hire someone to do that.
So how does that differ from the next group, which is the action steps, right? So the action steps in some ways address that in the same way.
Well, they add more detail in how you're going to do this. Your deliverable is to hire somebody, and the action steps are how you're going to go about hiring them.
Other
To say
thoughts,
what you
comments?
think it should, how it should read?
So the SMART goal should be something to the effect of add 3 new methods of communication with stakeholders by this date to ensure two-way communication. Because it has to be specific.
by saying 3, that's the specificity.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that we can't come up with that 3 number until we actually do the stakeholder survey, right? So it's a bit
that
of
was
a,
right.
Okay.
That was pick a number,
just
2, 3, however many we land on, right? But if currently we say we're at 0 or 2 or I don't know how many we're at, right? And the goal is to increase it. So how many new ways are we going to increase?
So increase communication methods based on survey
And then,
results.
exactly, the survey will then guide the 2 to 3 new methods that we're going to implement.
Other thoughts on this?
And then it has to be measurable, right? So how many times are we going to use these new methods of
So the measurable
communication?
wouldn't be the hiring of the consultant and going through the process in the first year of hiring the consultant, doing the stakeholder survey, and doing all that, because wouldn't that occur next school year?
Well, the measurable would be your results from the survey if you've increased your communication.
Right, but I think the way we were looking at it, the first step of the SMART goal, the measurable was getting somebody on board based on all the action and the stuff. So the measurable we were counting on for the first year was the hiring of the person based on the feedback from the survey to help us create the job description, create the position, post the position, hire the position.
Well, no, I would say that the person you're hiring will help achieve the SMART goal. The SMART goal isn't to hire someone. The SMART goal is to increase our methods of communicating with our stakeholders.
Right, but I think to some extent it's identify resources needed to reach the goals, right? Because I think what I'm hearing is that there may not be the resources currently in-house. So whether it's what comes first, whether it's the survey or the administration's assessment, it is likely additional resources are needed to be directed to this.
Well, then, but the goal isn't resources, the goal is methods.
Yeah, the goal
Sorry
is
to
what's
get
in the
so
objective,
picky,
what
yeah.
Lorraine is saying. The goal is to increase the communication. The final measurement was that communication increased? And that would have been, and you're going to say, how are you going to get there? Well, how are you going to get there? You've got a couple of deliverables. You hired somebody, you've got surveys, you did a couple, you increased the other things here, and then what results did those bring? And you won't know that for a year. That will be your measure, that will be your final proxy whether or not you met that goal.
Well, and I hear what you're both saying. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think I see Kevin taking a lot of notes to revise. But I would say that the actual goal itself is research. I think this board has been split in some prior discussions in terms of assessing how well we communicate or don't communicate. So I think the goal itself is researching opportunities and methods. So I want to make sure we keep that in mind and don't conclude that the goal is we need to increase the two-way engagement. Ryan, what would you say?
I'm struggling with creating the goal until we know what the needs are. So I think, and I can be way off base. I understand what you're talking about with the SMART goal. The concern that I have is what is essential academic information that is not currently being divulged, and how is it not getting, why is it not getting to people? What is essential club and activity? What is fun to know club and activity? What is the fun to know about the school, things happening? What is the level of need that people have? What are the ways that we communicate it, and how well is it being received? And I don't mean whether that people like it, I mean actually getting the message on different levels,
So back to the goal itself.
So I would need to know who are we going to charge with just getting that done, which is where I think the hiring comes in. Now, I'm not saying that your SMART goal end game isn't the right one, but I don't yet know that we are severely deficient in any of, I'm randomly naming these categories, but I know Claire has brought up that Instagram helps with students getting some information. But what are the things that we need parents to know, community to know, students to know, family, extended family to know? And what are the, along with what's essential, what's fun, what's, community-based. There's a lot of different things that I think getting someone in charge is where we would begin that process, I guess.
But I think the question is also, to get to that survey, do we have the resources currently, or are additional resources needed? And that's an administration question.
But your goal is in that objective to increase communication. That's your goal. What you're talking about is coming up with the deliverables to say that we're meeting that. You've already set your goal, is that we want to increase communication.
The goal is research to increase.
Well, if we look at goal number 2,
That's
research
the objective,
opportunities, right, to engage all stakeholders in the community, to increase two-way engagement. So are we just looking, so the goal there, are we just saying we only want to know what different ways are to engage our community, or are we going to say that we need to engage our community?
We can act once we know the research and the opportunities. In my mind, and you can ignore me if you want, or you can tell me that it needs to be reworked, but we need someone who's tasked with this work. And this work is who is getting what I've already said.
Well, so I guess then the question is then it becomes an academic question. What are all the ways that a theoretical school district can engage its community?
Correct.
And that's an academic exercise, or are we saying that we believe it's important to engage our community?
We need to know what the best ways are before we start throwing stuff out there.
Well, they would, if we said it's important that we have a two-way engagement with our community as our goal, then that would be their charge. Okay, let's find out what the best way is to do that as they get their deliverables. And the deliverables would be what you have here. Maybe one is to get a communication person. That's the best way to do it. Another deliverable is to get a survey. Another deliverable is Instagram. Another deliverable, there's multiple deliverables to meet that.
I am not arguing that point. I'm in agreement.
Yeah.
I don't know how we get there right now, and I think we need input from the superintendent on what resources we have to get to a point where we can
I think we just need to
come up with,
be real clear on the goal, we don't want to have just an academic exercise. Is it good for a district to be engaged? I think we were considering that this district be engaged with our community.
So I think maybe we have a language issue here a little bit, right? So we've adopted these goals. The goal, as adopted, is research opportunities and methods to increase two-way engagement with all stakeholders, the RB. So we were all in agreement with that. We went through this laborious process, right? Right. I think perhaps we're seeing objectives, SMART goal, action steps, and hearing what Laura said early on, we could collapse. They can be collapsed because they have a little bit of overlap here. And so I think what we asked the administration to do, and this is the attempt, so to answer one of Kevin's question, I like the format, but it will need some tweaking, right?
Should we keep an objective and SMART goal, or we combine?
Yeah, just a clarification, is the objective was like the year-to-year thing, right? So the goal is a long-standing thing, but then is the objective for each year we're going to take on?
Well, the objective is why did we write this goal? The overall reason that we wrote this goal was to increase two-way engagement.
It's almost a rephrase of the retreat.
Okay, so the goal and the objective are kind of the same thing? Okay.
Yeah, so I think Laura makes a good point, and these can be condensed, and it's just for ease of, but I think we want measurable goals, right? So getting to, I go down to action steps are truly measurable with some.
Yes, and your SMART goal and your action steps in this particular column are redundant. Those are deliverables that could answer this. Do you need them all? No. Maybe you want them all. And that's where staff would come in and say, these are the ones we want to research and bring back to you.
But aren't these all things these are all things that the administration, or if we hire this communications person, would need to do? Create the survey, we got to create a job description.
Yes, those are all deliverables.
We have to have a roadmap for all this work so that we can
Mm-hmm.
update the board on this accordingly.
Right, those are all deliverables to meet that goal. And you could come back and say, we can't do them all, that's crazy. But we think we can we can do these three well to meet this goal.
If I could jump in, I think one of the things Dr. Skinkis and I struggled with when we were doing this is, the feedback we heard when the board put the goals out for feedback was that they wanted a SMART goal.
Yes.
And without receiving any additional direction, a SMART goal could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, so we were kind of shooting in the dark as to what the board wanted. Did you want a SMART goal that was only achievable within 1 year? Were you looking for this to be something that was accomplished over, 3 or 4 years? I think that will help give us some additional direction because we weren't. A SMART goal has to be specific, it has to be measurable, right? It has to be attainable, it has to be realistic and time bound. And so without some additional information from the board, we weren't quite sure, and especially with the communication goal when it says research, you have to, as we've been discussing, do the research in order to come up with the specific goal that you want to achieve afterwards. So I think it might be helpful as we move forward to receive feedback on the format, but then also is the board looking for something, a SMART goal that's over 1 year, or is this supposed to be spanning multiple years?
I think we need to have this discussion now and decide, are we and maybe we need feedback from the two of you, but do we need more resources on the front end to get this work going?
Well, to be honest with you, this is simple. And the measurable success of the item can be easily measured. So the idea was to hire the communications person first. Right, our SMART goal would probably
you answering my question would be yes, we need more resources for someone to do this, and that's where I would say I understand what you're saying. I'm hearing you. I think the measurable part is, did we hire someone to do the work?
That is the deliverable, and that means you met that goal. Yeah.
But that's going to take us this summer or maybe into next fall.
Then
you want to rewrite the wording of it, but the outcome is the same.
Yeah, so
that's fine.
I
don't mind doing that.
Right. What I'm saying is you got more work than you need. So your deliverable was hiring that person.
Right. So when we get into Lorena's,
you met the goal.
When we get into Lorena's identify 3 new methods of communication, that would.
Easy.
When we get into Lorena's comment of identify 3 new methods to increase two-way engagement, or that to me would be our year 2, or if this, as we start making progress with the first part of hiring a consultant.
Right. Then you can expand on it, yes.
So my suggestion is you strike
too. I thought the goal was, it came out of a need to engage with community members who are not parents, right? Like the taxpayers, not necessarily parents. I thought that was the spirit of that goal, is because I feel like we have parents covered. I could
Well,
be
I think
wrong.
we have all
I don't know.
stakeholders down.
Right, no, but like in general, parents are currently covered.
But so I would suggest that we've heard enough feedback at the board level from students and from parents that they would like improved communications, right? Even as parents. So I think all stakeholders was a key piece of it, not just limited to the.
And in my thought process was like, oh, good, we're gonna go participate in more community-based events as a board, or we're gonna. I did not realize, but now it makes sense, that it meant hire somebody.
That would be a deliverable, and then that will grow.
No, that's fine.
Wouldn't a SMART goal be to hire and implement a
Yeah.
communications consultant to increase the
Then that-
number of opportunities?
That's your deliverable to the goal. Your goal is what you've got in the box for the objective. Once you hire this person, you've met this goal for this year.
Okay.
So, trying to synthesize all this, I'm
It's
suggesting.
much easier than we're making it.
We strike the whole row that says objective. I think you were trying to be helpful and provide some more color commentary based on our discussion, but perhaps it just confuses things. I think combining, it's a SMART deliverable, if you will, just to highlight the best of all worlds. And it's some version of that hire and implement, and that person would theoretically do a stakeholder survey. You're going to have to do the job description, other pieces to
Correct.
support that.
Right.
But that the SMART deliverables, which would be measurable and actionable, et cetera, would be some version of those steps.
Of the objective and the SMART goal combined.
No,
Yeah.
of the SMART goal and the action steps combined.
So we're
Objectives
eliminating the
going-
objective
Mhm.
completely.
Yeah.
And the whole board's on board right this, right?
Well, I guess I'm asking, that's kind of what I think,
That's
I'm
what I
trying to
was asking.
synthesize what everyone's saying here, just to get us.
Because what I would say is, once I clean this up
We have to approve.
with 2 or 5, well, the next step would be, once the board's okay, with it, I need to do cleanup. We'll bring it back at the next meeting, or the next cow meeting. Remember, this is why we said this is going to take a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, I'd like to post it to our stakeholder group,
Agreed.
right? So that they can give some feedback or some input. And then after that, we can, that's why I said this will take us right into summer, so.
But I think we also want to address Dr. Smetana's question about 2022-23 school year and then future. I think from our prior discussions, my takeaway was, what are the SMART deliverables for the next school year? And then the way you have it here, it reflects, I believe, what our discussion was. But if someone disagrees, this would be a good time to raise it.
Yeah, that's what the future impossible should be for. So we should really be trying to work 1 year at a time, unless it's a goal, unless it's a SMART goal we lay out that's a 2 or 3 year process. So
Yeah, like if you hire this communication person, you're not gonna then fire them, you're gonna grow it.
sure,
Yeah.
and that's why you see
Right.
under future,
Yeah, under your future stuff, you're gonna grow it.
increased stakeholder
Yes.
surveys, subcommittees with RBA, social media presence,
Right.
webpage improvements, continued
Right.
committees, things like that.
Yeah, it'll grow, but this year, once you find this person and get them on board, you've met that goal.
Right, so our SMART goal for 22-23
Yeah.
would be the hiring of a communications person.
And I want to highlight, I think you very accurately portrayed it as a consultant employee. I think what portion of an FTE that person entails, what
Yes.
cost of that person, I think
Right.
is up to a certain amount of deliberation, right? We're not.
Right, well, that's what brings
Yeah.
us back to the
Right.
board, like, hey, you wanted to
Right.
address communication?
Yeah.
Right.
We're thinking it's either a part-time employee, or we're thinking
Right.
it's a
Right.
a stipend that a staff member can complete, right? We're
Right,
we're
no, I
gonna
just
come
wanted to
back to you
highlight
with-
that, yeah.
Yeah. It's easy.
All right, so give me some general guidance, same thing on number 5 then.
Can you get through?
Eliminate the objective, or
Yes.
combine, or the objective
Yeah.
is now the SMART goal?
Yep, the SMART goal is your delivery, is your deliverable. What you put in that cell.
Which cell, Laura?
And if you're in goal 5, that column.
I'm in the whole goal 5 thing.
Yeah,
So-
the same thing like the other one, establish a committee, that's your deliverable again. That's,
I think the same standard applies, right?
Same
Objective
standards,
gets
right,
struck
right.
across the
Right.
goals.
Right.
And then there's a combo, if you will, SMART deliverables between how you've written it out for SMART goals and the action steps.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there's a future possible considerations remains.
Yeah, because once you get that committee, that's the thing that you got. So that's your deliverable. That's, for the year, that would be done. It's going to take you a while to do that.
But I think you could have a second step of, you wanted to conduct at least one meeting,
Yes,
right? I mean,
right,
obviously, right? It's
right.
not just.
But pretty
forming it.
much, yeah, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is a SMART goal is not a deliverable.
A SMART goal has deliverables, yes.
So where do the deliverables go?
Your goal, if you don't have a deliverable, you've not met your goal.
The deliverable and the SMART goal for a committee would be that they'd have at least one meeting in the 22-23 school year. So you're establishing a committee with multiple stakeholders and conducting at least one meeting.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So we're keeping goal 5, we're keeping objective, SMART goal, action
We're getting rid of
steps, and
that.
future.
So far, the consensus I'm picking up on from the board is that they want to eliminate the objective piece and just have goal, SMART goal, action steps, and then future considerations.
Is that what everyone is hearing?
Yeah, the objective, the way it's written here, is almost like an expanded explanation of what the goal is.
I take that as a yes.
Yes, I mean, that's what I had suggested and no one objected, right? Because objective was pulled from the.
It's a little beyond my
concept.
pay grade, I'm just trying to absorb it.
Okay, so I think we'll see a shorter document, if you will, but then as the team works through the other goals, which.
But yeah, I'm only bringing you back 2 and 5
Right.
cleaned up. I'm not starting on the other ones
Yeah.
just yet.
Yeah.
Fair point.
So
No,
then- So then when we have this meeting under number 5 and you say it's been met for the year, and then we add another,
Well, then you look at the stuff under the possible and future
Yeah.
considerations, and then maybe rewrite a SMART goal for
And move it
23
up.
and 24,
okay,
right?
I'm on board with that.
So, I mean, possibly, it's make an offer on, whatever your future and possible considerations will evolve as the work occurs in year one.
Gotcha.
But I think,
It's some good direction.
yeah, I think you made a good point too, Dr. Skinkis, about a lot of the underlying measurables are already embedded in things like the school report card and other areas that the district monitors, and they won't necessarily be reflected explicitly in one of these 5 goals. I just want to make sure everyone's understanding that and is comfortable with that. So that is a slight departure from the prior structure.
That might be a conversation you want to revisit when you go to goal 1. But
So we'll see, so let's get through goals 5 and 2, and then as we have the discussion on goal 1. Okay, I can live with that. Anyone else on the goals for tonight?
I think we're good
Anyone?
over here.
Thank you.
Okay,
No new business.
no new business, no visitors, no requested discussion items, no consideration of items for future meetings. Well, we do have one for future,
Future
I guess I
meeting,
figured out-
student, the role
Yep.
of student advisor, so we will need the board to make a decision on that in March so that we can
Yep.
post an interview accordingly for proceeding.
Are we ready?
Well,
we do have matters for closed session, so I think we're looking for a motion on that.
The Board of Education Township High
I'm
School.
sorry,
Mike,
Mr.
did you
Welch?
have something?
so student advisors is a topic we're going to talk about.
Mary Ann's going to have it on
Future
the
meeting.
In a
March
future
agenda.
meeting. Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body, student discipline, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
Can we get a second? Thank you, Ms. Gaska.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Hood
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
And Ms. Salis?
Yes.